Are you some kind of athlete? Okay. Because I don't see Chinese that are that tall. Okay.
Yeah.
They said, yeah. And I said, well, then all of you must be from the north.
Stereotype.
Okay. And then, so we're, like when we're on the same plane together. Okay. And my daughter had just come back from Zealand. Okay. She said, Mom, these are going to stay in the rocket. I said, well, Good afternoon. Welcome to the Pacific Region Forum on Business and Management Communication. I'm Rosalie Kang, Professor of International Business and Associate Director of the David Lapp Center for International Communication. Our speaker this afternoon is Dr. Zhenyi Li, who is Associate Director of Academic and International Cooperation from the Center for Intercultural Communication at the University of British Columbia. Dr. Li received a PhD from the University of
Jyvaskyla, yes.
In Finland. He's engaged in research, teaching, and consulting in the area of intercultural communication since 1995. Dr. Li has held listing appointments at Simon Fraser University, Lille University, Lille Catholic University in France, University of Jyvaskyla in Finland, and Fudan University in Shanghai. Dr. Li is an executive member of the Society of Intercultural Education, Training, and Research in British Columbia and was elected for SIETAR EUROPA for 6 years. Dr. Li has published a book on culture's impact on international branding. Today, Dr. Li will speak about optimizing Webpage communications across Asia Pacific. Dr. Li's presentation will be followed by a question and answer period. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dr. Li.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Tang, and for inviting me to talk here, and also thank you everyone for your time and for your interest. To share my own research interest. I'm going to turn on this one. Is it on? No. Okay. Let's see. Okay, technology. Okay. What I'm going to present today is called Optimizing Webpage Communication Across the Pacific and Challenges and Solutions for Canadian and East Asian organizations. This means that I'm going to, for example, compare these web pages designed in Canada, in China, in Japan, and in Korea. And I'm going to point out these differences and analyze them from intercultural communication perspective. And after that, I'm going to point out some pitfalls and suggest some strategies for both sides from across the Pacific to design and more, say, effective web pages to communicate across different cultures. And after that, I will make a short conclusion and leave the last half an hour for discussion and questions. But you're welcome to interrupt me anytime if you have questions, comments, or concerns. Before I start, I will introduce you a little bit about my previous research and also my own research interest. I'm working in the field called intercultural communication that many of you may be familiar with or may not. Intercultural communication started about 30 years ago, mainly focusing on expatriates, like their adaptation to the local culture, then gradually shifted to joint venture managers communication, But anyway, it's very often focusing on the interpersonal communication. Well, when I started my research, I found there's a huge blank area, which I will call it as non-interpersonal communication. For example, advertisements. They are designed by one organization, and I view advertisements as a part of the communication, and it can be a communication between a person and an advertisement. So I started to work on that and found, yeah, it's really amazing to see that those so-called cultural dimensions existing in interpersonal communication also they also have their impact on non-interpersonal communication. And so that's the starting point. I developed my own model, looking at, say, if some information, looking at the communication between a piece of information and a person. And say, especially if that piece of information is designed, developed, sent by a different, an organization or person from a different culture. And my first study was for a telecommunication company, looking at what kind of images they developed for their target group, and also then I interviewed those people, their target group, about their perceptions. What I found is like there's some kind of a mismatch of the sending image and the perceived image. And I found there are many cultural factors, impacting behind of that. And finally, I made my claim that different cultural values will have different impact on people's perception of a message. And from that part, I started working on branding across cultures, which is like mainly focusing on set up an image. So it's not simply a product, it's not simply a promotion or marketing process, but branding, how a brand would be seen by the others and how the others really will perceive it. And after my dissertation research, I gradually shifted my focus from the conventional so-called offline to the online part, because more and more organizations are now developing, their web pages on the internet, and also there's more discussions on so-called e-commerce, and these are some supporting data that I will present to you. Say like 97% of all economic activities in Canada are now online, but this is mainly focusing on Canadian firms. When you think about educational section, when you think about governments are putting more and more information online, we will say, okay, Canada is very much connected virtually. And when we're looking at the e-commerce, the portion of it in the international business, it's increasing very fast, about 66 times, bigger than 3 years ago. And people will believe that web pages are very useful tools for them to promote their image and to transfer information to for worldwide audience. And they are it can increase 3 things: revenue, customer base, and customer loyalty. And this decrease 1 thing, which is very much ideal, the cost. However, when we are thinking about the web visitors, I call them visitors because they there might be somebody like to, particularly to see some information, but there might be somebody just to, spend some time and surfing around in the internet. When we think about visitors, they become, less and less patient. If they don't see the information there, if they don't see that's the pattern they like, they will go. And there's an article called "They clicked, they left," and that's what an organization actually do not want to see. Let me show you first a few examples so that we get the impression what I'm talking about communication patterns. This is Nordhale webpage, and well, I would say it's a pretty typical Canadian way or Western way of presentation. You have that in your front page, like it's a one page. It fits with your 17-inch screen, and presents these information. Basically, they group them into different categories and also allow you to search any words you like to. But then when we look at another web page designed and developed by Koreans, KT is Korean Telecom. They're so different. And it takes approximately about 1 minute to finish that flash. And it's a Korean company, but they have 2 Caucasian kids work for them. And some other differences that I will comment also later in the presentation is that you may notice that the Korean website, they provide Korean language, English language, and Chinese language sub-website. And Nordhale, there's only English. I don't know if they have a French one. They should have one, right? Yeah. Yeah, this is nearly about it, but if you don't close the window or if you don't go to the next page, it will continue like this. The bubbles of e-business. Yeah, you can actually skip. You actually can skip. So that's a very good question, because how many of you would like to wait till the end of the show, right? And then you think about why then the Koreans will develop such a long flash show to the audience. Like, do they know that they are less patient audience? Would like to skip all kinds of these flash. Let me just get to the point. And this is what I will comment on, different communication patterns. People will feel very much, well, we have the sound as a background. So people will feel very much comfortable once they've seen the Nordhale webpage. If they like to get to the deal immediately or get to the point, okay, so, or let me search the information I like. But then think about, there must be a reason supporting the design of the KT webpage, that they thought like people will spend a few minutes with them in their entertaining shows, and people would like to be a kind of passive visitor, like be guided to their realm, to their kingdom. So these are the two communication patterns. I have to close this, otherwise it's all the time, right? And well, by the way, I would say I haven't finished all my studies or comparisons of different web pages, and it seems impossible, because we have I don't know how many web pages in the world. But then what will we say, like the typical way of a Canadian website? Well, looks like just like the Nortel one, and I will show you some other Chinese and Japanese websites that very much close to the KT way of their presentation. But then I would say we already have noticed like there are different web pages, and they may get some visitors, or they may lose some visitors. And I would say the reason for this is like people will have different communication patterns, and this page could only designed for a group of people. But internet is a kind of different media that you really don't know who will log on and who will look at your web page. But what if there's a person, say, from Nortel looking for a cooperation with KT, and for the first time, like get into the website and thought, oh, what's their way of doing business like? Is that a slow one or something? And what if the KT one will look at the Nortel one and say, okay, where should I start?
So for the KT, once you click onto the different languages, are there differences in terms of the layout and design?
Yeah, I will go to that. Yeah, in the next part. Yeah, that's right. That's what I will say. Okay, when we see the pitfalls, we need to think about the strategies. And some very much clever like organizations, they actually design different pages for different audience. But it's more or less like a kind of guess. I guess like if you like this kind of pattern or something. But then how did I study on this? Because I have quite many difficulties. First, well, for example, at this moment it's mainly my own interest, and I spend my spare time, to do this research. There's no sponsor. There's no fund for that. And second is that okay, there are endless like web pages, and which kind of page should I focus on? I will introduce you the concept of an entry page first. Entry page is also called the main page, the loading page, the first page, the front page. It's usually like it's like a kind of reception area of an organization or web pages. And the entry page is usually found by visitors rather than the employees or the staff or the regular customers, because the other people they can go directly to a specific site rather than to spend time Google them and find the entry page. And the entry page also is very important. Like it's the we can view them as the face or the front gate of an organization, especially for the visitor for their first time visit. And then the second part, like I selected a few pages that they can represent the typical communication patterns, and I will introduce what do I mean the communication patterns in the next few slides. And then I used other resources from, for example, Industry Canada. They have a quite comprehensive site, also a website, on e-business and web page design. There are some suggestion guidelines like how do you start to make your own organizational, basically their business like websites. And this tells us the basic values and patterns like Canadian will do. And I also used materials from a independent research consulting company. It's called the Forrester Research Inclination. They are mapping, or they are investigating different website designs, and they frequently publish their findings also online. When we are talking about entry page, and why we only selected these entry page, because what we are going to check in this study is about the web page communication effectiveness. If this is a effective communication tool or not. So we are not looking at the content, and we are not looking at a specific group of people. So better a general public, less purposeful, just found this and think, oh, this is good, right? And I have a very good impression of that organization, or these things. And also, we want them to have the freedom to stay or leave, so that we can see, okay, how long, so that we can see like if they really like that website or not. But as I told you, it takes time and also costs. If I will do a control group, if I will do a quantitative one, I can invite, for example, students to search a few websites, and I can monitor, how long they stayed and what kind of actions they take. But this will be the second phase of my study, if possible. And then I try to include some entry pages and try to kick off some other entry pages because of that previous criteria. For example, government pages I'm not interested in, because many people, they went to the government pages for some particular reasons. And then .net is too general, and .org for non-government organizations or for some social communities. It's also like it's only focusing on a few group of people. And then individual personal web pages. There are millions or trillions of them. That's not studied in this study. And then web pages of news, BBC News, CNN News. People get there, they're mainly focusing on the news, but and also weather, traffic, all these informations. And search engines, Google, Yahoo, and BBS. It's more like for a group of online community. Webmail, Hotmail, all these things. I'm not interested in their design, and because like me, I'm using Hotmail because I like the way they laid out. But another reason is I have to, accommodate whichever way they make it, and they just, pasted a few advertisements for me. But yeah, I have to accept that. So I don't have the freedom to stay or leave. And then e-trading, which is like, for example, eBay. I have a purpose, like I want to compare the price of digital cameras, and I go to eBay and I want to buy something. So yeah, I can tolerate their patterns. And small businesses, if it's too small, it's not so much significant. But if it's too big, like multinationals, I'm also not interested in. Or branding oriented, what I mean, for example, Coca-Cola. The viewer, the visitor of their website won't, or will less possibly change their perceptions or impression of that organization just because their website doesn't fit their expectation. So if they are too big, they actually do not need very much to worry about that. But all these are relevant. For example, UBC in Vancouver is big, but UBC in the world is not so well known. So I will include UBC in this study and see how people will perceive the UBC pattern. And then let's say the Nortel is very big in Canada, but it's not very big in the world. So I still include Nortel. What I will say is some players like regionally active and regionally very big, strong, but they are looking for wider international cooperation. And so they actually are those organizations would like to have international exposures and would like to have some surprising visitors and finally send an email to them. And also the names should be Googleable, which means, if I don't know Nortel, I just type in like Canadian telecommunication company, then yeah, I found that. This will show more like in the real world. So finally, I select a few high-tech companies because they are very active, looking for international cooperation, and a few universities because students are looking for some education opportunities in other universities. They usually will Google and get to the university site, and also faculties, they move around, and sportswear brands, which is a test I will use, because I was thinking about there's some articles on now we have the new generation, like they born when after the computer is born, and they even can born after the internet is born, and they may like the same thing. So okay, don't worry about these people. We just are focusing on the next generation, and we design the same thing because they like the same thing. So let's say in the next 50 years, all the people will like a pattern. And so we can design only one thing. So I choose sportswear because it's younger. And when we are talking about study on communication patterns, we actually will say, okay, no matter if it's interpersonal or non-interpersonal, we actually will look at three questions: what and how, and the relation between the sender and the receiver. For example, I give you one example. It's like, okay, if I will welcome you, let's say to my company or to my family, what will I do? So in some cultures, they will say, welcome, come in, and I guide you, right? But in some other cultures, they will make it as a big event. They line up all the stuff and say welcome, right? So this is a different pattern, and how they are going to do it. For example, in some cultures, as I experienced also personally, if I visit a family, they say, okay, welcome, and you are going to stay overnight. That's fine. Just feel free, feel as if you are in your own home. And here's the washroom, here's your bedroom, and here's the living room, and feel free, and also refrigerator over there, and just to get some drinks, all these things, and that's it, right? So that's the how way here. But say if it's in a Chinese family, then they say, okay, welcome, and here's a cup of green tea or jasmine tea, and they don't ask you if it's tea or coffee or something, but we believe host knows the best, and the host will provide you the best tea. So it's not you have no choice, but it's more the hospitality they are going to show you. And also this relates to the relation. Who's going to do what part and how much care? So the next morning, will you make the break first, or will you let the guest feel free, to make their own, all these things? But come back to the web page design. we think about, okay, what should an entry page do? This is the first question you shall answer, because you only have a square screen. Usually nowadays it's 17 inches, right? So you have that, and you have a big university, say UBC. What are you going to put in this screen as the entry page? And should an entry page present only one thing or many? So is that one thing or many? And also, how much should you take care of the visitors? Shall we say, hi visitors, click here and you get what? Or we say, okay, feel free. I'm just in the background. Welcome. This is our living room. Feel free. You can do anything. Then, with these three questions, I found three very interesting patterns. They are quite different. Say, feel first or relationship first. We can use the Nortel and the KT one as example. Is like, is that, we expect the entry page expect the visitors will go directly to the deal, or the visitors will ask you to present your company or your organization, everything to the point, or is that let's spend a few minutes, like to build up a trustworthy relationship? And I will come back to this part with more examples. The second one is, okay, if we design an entry page, should it be single-focused or multi-focused? And this one is such a salient differences, for the web pages designed across the Pacific. I will give actually the most focus on this part. And then the last one is that, is it host-oriented or guest-oriented? I will also talk about that in the presentation. So first one, deal or relationship, which one first? And according to the Forrester Research Inclination, to the, let's say, the left side to you, above the North Hill, is the first 6 priority ranked by 500 Western companies, designers or PR officers say, okay, what shall I do first if I design the entry page? So they say, okay, showcasing products, that's first, let's do it. And they say, okay, collecting product feedback, let's do it. So finally, number 6 is attracting and keeping new customers. However, to the Asians, the orders are basically like reversed. First one is to attract and keep new customers. Second one is to promote the company brand. So until the last one is like to saving the senior personnel from having to answer the basic questions. So that shows you like the differences, like what are we going to do first. And this is so true also in the interpersonal communication part. I think Professor David Thomas, he studied on intercultural intelligence. I mean, he must have more examples about like, okay, when you visit a company, say in Japan, is that first thing go to the conference room? Is that first thing to go to the sushi bar or to the Fuji mountain or something, right? So is that first let us get to know each other, or is that first let us get to know about a product first, or sign the deal first, or after that let's celebrate, right? So these are two different communication patterns. Yes. Yeah, the Korean website, this entry site is a typical one, showing that they are very much relationship first. like the priority. They want you know that this is a real like high-tech company, and they can make such a good page, which means they can make everything good. So you actually can trust them before you look at more detailed information. Is that your question?
Well, I was just wondering, I mean, I guess that that's a different company,
Mm-hmm.
but how's it looking exactly from the role of the affection and keeping of new customers?
Well, yeah, their idea is that this one will keep you as a visitor, okay, with them. But it may not be true. It may not be the case, because people will think, oh, what's wrong with that? Yeah. So tell me what exactly you want to tell me. But I don't have time to spend 1 minute, watching your flash, because you are not a kind of animation company or making these things, right? So that's exactly right. I mean, for the people, let's say, okay, for Canadians who are used to no-tail style, they may feel very much frustrated of KT. But for the Koreans who are familiar with the KT style, then they think, okay, what's no-tail? There's no. There's one quotation I have, and I will put that in another slide. It says the Asian people, when they interviewed, they said many Western websites are so impersonal and cold. I don't see anybody welcoming me. What's it? Look at the no-tail one. It's just help yourself, a kind of thing. But here is like I show you people in action, and this is a family, and welcome, all these things. So all these like kind of cultural fundamental values, they actually will embed it even in their web page design. And I would say that would be fine if internet is not global. Because if you have only Korean web pages for Koreans, that's fine. That's fine. But internet is very interesting. It's global, and you can Google search any website. I mean, at least from Canada, right? Yeah, Google's not very much working well in some other places. But in Canada, you can just Google search anything. And so if I'm the designer of KT, I really need to worry about how about the other audience. Okay? And well, we come back to this in the strategy part. And look at the other dimension, single and multi-focused. This is often in the interpersonal communication part called polychronic and monochronic, which means you do one thing in one time, or you do many things in the same time. And typically, I'm not generalizing, but typically Westerners tend to like a monochronic, a linear way. Let's finish A and then go to B and do C, and let's put it in a logical way, right? But the Eastern logic is like, okay, let me tell you this and that at the same time. And I give you 2 examples. I don't think we need to go to the roots. This actually is the Roots Taiwan webpage. It's not the general entry page of Roots. I will show you that later. But this is already Roots Taiwan one, but they have the same pattern, the same style as the Canadian one. Okay. And this is the sportswear, which I will say, okay, people expect like views from all the world are the same. And this one is a brand called Li Ning in China. And interestingly, they also use a flash, a kind of mini movie presentation. There's some sound over there, but not as loud as the KT one. And they provide you also the option to skip it. But yeah, this is a quite short one, I think. Yeah. And you see the pop-up advertisements, right? It can be very much annoying to a monochronic person, like, oh, let me look at this, let me focus on this, but then pop up, and this is not an extreme example yet. They only have one, and it's outdated. I think it's for the Olympic and in the summer. And then in this multi-focused web page, you actually can see something not exactly relevant to the brand or to the product or to the organization. They have these links just showing you that the other activities they are involved in, even it's not they organize that. This is something different, say, from Roots or from Nortel, because everything here is relevant to Nortel. But what I mean, the multi-focus one is, okay. The multi-focus one is like many things presenting to you, but not everything's relevant to the organization itself. Okay, if I can. This is the Olympic, just passed in August, and this one is to, what is that? To anti this the fake like brand names, yeah, the convince. And then this is hiring, and this one is for a sports glass. So especially this one is not the direct business of this sportswear, but they do these things all together. I think so. It's hiring. It's like their HR side, so that they, yeah. Anti the counterfeit products.
But in that sense, all of them are quite related, because obviously the Olympics is promoting
Yeah.
that, the counterfeit products would prevent people from buying fake unique products, right?
Yeah.
So hiring and then the sport, their assessment component.
Yeah. Also this pop-up. It's also anyway you see the brand name over there, all these things. But yeah, they are. There's another one. Could be a better example, telling you what's this kind of multi-focus stuff style. Let me close these. When we are talking about the multi-focus communication pattern, I will explain that a little bit more because it's a concept starting from the Chinese cultural linguists, Professor Sun Xiaolong, for example, from Fudan University. This is a parent of his grandfather, and he's like an artist, and also he's a linguist. And he said, well, the Western grammar is basically like a single focus one. Everything is about the verb. The verb is the backbone of a sentence. And his way of explaining the Chinese grammar or the sentence is like it's a flow with many focuses. And each of them, they are related, but not necessarily, impacting on each other. And he used these pens also on explaining, like, when you look at these, you don't see as like from the traditional Western way, like you must start from a focus, from a perspective, and you don't see where's the distance or these things, but they are related to a Chinese mindset. And I'm going to compare these things using the art pieces from traditional Chinese pens and the traditional Western pens. So the right one shows you a Western, a typical Western one, and you even can find it looks like a photo or a picture. Like what I mean, a single focus one is like you can make it also from your camera. A camera can make it, but the Chinese one, your camera cannot make it because there are several focuses in this pen, like one here and one here, because if you use only a single focus camera, you cannot see all the details, right? And I'm just doing a few more comparisons because I noticed the time. Okay, so the Japanese way and the French way, and I showed this is the Chinese way, and this is traditional Japanese, and this is the modern Korean. And this reminds me quite much about the KT design. It's like a flow, and people feel comfortable, without a focus, without a single focus. And I show you the other two. This is a Korean University webpage. Hopefully, it will show you. This is Seoul National. Well, all these parts are quite normal, right? These parts are quite normal. But what I noticed is like quite many Asian universities like to have these banners floating about the photos, which can be very much annoying. Why don't you put them down in the list that are kind of floating all around? And well, this is from my Korean colleague, and they also told me these things, links to different websites, and this is to the English test center of Korean, which is not their business. Okay, not their business. And I also visited some, I didn't include them in this presentation in the slides. I also visited some other web pages. For example, the Chinese mineral company, which is now merging the Canadian one. Merging the Norinda. I looked at theirs, and it's more multi-focused, but it's not in my scope in this presentation because it's more or less like a semi-government company. So, but they have like links to MOC, they have links to Ministry of Commerce, and they have links to this and that, and something different, but the Miranda is very much single-focused. It's all about us. You want to know more about Canada, you go to a Canadian website, right? So I have no obligation to tell you about that. And this one's even, this is a football sportwear entrance page. And I think let's skip. Well, let's have a short look over there. Okay, that's so long. Okay, let's skip. Loading again. Okay. So I would say, look at the design of it. It's not logically, from up to down, but I like to put this here. It's like a Chinese traditional painter. They like to paint the bamboo here or there, and I put another stone there, and I feel it's comfortable. But then for a single-focused visitor, this will be very much frustrating. Where shall I start? Which part is the most important? Because you don't tell me all these things. So, and more graphics. Another thing is like more graphics, more visual presentations. Host versus guest-oriented. Okay, this is a short one. As I told you, how much a host shall do. The ALG from Korea, well, it's already a very big multinational. The part I want to show you is this one. They are guiding you to the part where are you from. So they say, okay, click here, and a map, on website is quite common. In many Western companies' webpage, they also have a map, and you can click. But this one shows you, okay, in Africa we have one site, so click. It's only one site. But Middle East, Europe, Asia, we have a few sites. And I show you where you can click. And this is one thing I would say the hosts are taking more care of the visitors. But routes, the general entry page here, we don't need to go there, shows you, okay, if you are from Canada, English or French, USA, or Taiwan. That's it. So it's a kind of like help yourself. Okay. I don't need to have a hand like moving there or these things. Because all these are easy, actually, for a web designer. But the difference is like if they will choose this pattern or not. And in conclusion, when we say, okay, an entry page is actually designed by a group of people who likes a pattern, let's say pattern A, and because of their basic cultural values. Single focus, for example, the basic culture, fundamental cultural values is time is money. Okay, so I don't want to waste my time, I don't want to waste your time. So pattern, then the visitor is from a different culture, culture B, they have different values, and then they have different patterns. So the pitfalls, I listed 6. 3 are very much relevant to communication patterns. So first is like the priority. Okay, deal first or relationship first. We've got some feedback, people saying, hurry up, skip the flash, let me make the deal, right? This is like a Westerners looking at the Eastern one, and then they say, wait, I don't know you, how can I trust you? And fill in the sign-in form. Okay, so it's a kind of trust, let's build a trust relation first. And then focus. Okay, why do you present so many irrelevant infos or links? We can do a statistical analysis, like how many links an Asian web page will present, and how many links and links to the outsiders, right? Not to the internal one. Is that all? People think about the roots. Canada, US, Taiwan. That's all. That's it. You don't have any other further information. And then the orientation. Okay. What's an impersonal site? Anybody here? Okay. And then the other 3 pitfalls is also very interesting, but not very much related to communication patterns. It's related to general communications, like language use. Canadians, 90% of Canadian websites only have one language, or French, some. And then 90% of Asian web pages, they have English. They have, they are at least bilingual, 2 languages. So this is something. And then apply the advanced technology only. Some web pages use very much sophisticated technology that if you are not using this kind of computer, you have to download a lot. A PDF reader and then Flash, all these things. And anyway, the last, which is the most important, is neglecting the visitor's expectation. What do they want to know? I just designed a web page, and that's it. So I don't care. And I talked with Professor Tong previously. I said, well, how many of you visit your own organization's web page? It's for the visitors, right? We just put it over there. Okay. Call for the multilingual. We can skip this one. More and more, focus on providing more information for different language users. And I picked up UBC as the example. UBC is, does UBC have a French one, Alan? No. I think, well, it can be sued. So, okay, so it's English only. What if you think of a Korean student would like to attend UBC and want to get something? But of course, they speak English, but what if there's a Korean version? They may feel like, okay, the host is more considerate, right? But it's not only Canadians are doing so. Tokyo University in Japan, they use simple translation. You see, so identical. I can learn Japanese from this way, you know. Read this line and then compare that one. I'm learning, right? So only 2 photos here are missing. But many universities, for example, the Seoul National University, they use 2 different styles, for the Korean one, for the English one. Because they thought, okay, the English one is mainly the Western visitors, so we use single workers, and we use deal first, so they are adapting the way Westerners, so they are using our way. And also Zhejiang University in China from Hangzhou, the English one is so, I would say, so Western. And the Chinese one, I don't think we have time to look at the Chinese one. The Chinese one also will have these pop-up and flashes and these things. But the English one, there's nothing. So, of course, well, the readership, of course, there are more Chinese visiting that's the Chinese main page. But then the English one, they try to make it very simple. And this is a Taiwanese university called Suzhou University, and their English one, the Chinese one are also very different. The Chinese one is like they also have a flash, which is very much relevant to the history of the university. So this is also a typical way of presenting. Like, let me tell you, this is a very old traditional or family business or long history, so that you can trust us. So behind of that, the value is like, okay, long-term orientation, which is one cultural dimension explored or found by Hofstede and Professor Bond. But then the English one, look at the English one, they are all simple links, and you just, click, and there's nothing, popping up or takes your time to read. And then we come to the 3 strategies I would suggest, and I have some examples to support that, because some organizations are already doing so. The first strategy is audience survey. So actually, it's not, they have 3 languages, so let's do 3 languages. No, it's first you need to check if it's necessary to change, or if it's necessary to adjust, and to mapping out to see, okay, what's the real expectation over there. We found that's very interesting. Say a university in China, they developed 2 pages. One is very typically, let's say, traditionally Chinese culture, right? And another one is for Western readers and the Western. But then they don't expect the Westerners to make a Chinese page with flashes and all these things, because they think, is that a real Western university? They look so Chinese. So you have to think about the expectation. The example of UBC webpage, maybe it's also very good. If we do more interview, maybe it's also very good. People can say, oh yeah, this is just what's in my mind a Western university should look like. Yeah. So shall we, just quickly, learn from the others, or copy the other ways, or just to think about, okay, what's the expectation? And localization and globalization, I have a few more slides on that. Let's keep it at this moment. And then the entry page design. There are some clever companies, I would say, they can guess where you are from. That's related to the IP tracking. So they can guess where you are from, so that they send you the web page like fits your expectation, not fits your culture, fits your expectation. I show you one quickly. That's very good, and also personal entry page. How many of you use the online bookstore? This Amazon. Amazon? Yeah, you are using. Yeah. Have you? So you have a login name, right? Have you noticed that the next time you visit, yeah, it's different from other people because they think, okay, you like that. I bought some books for a friend without a credit card, so on computer science, and every time they send me messages like, we have computer books, and would you like to buy that? Because they're guessing, okay, what's the habit? And every time I click the book, they're guessing, okay, you have kids, you buy toys or something. So, well, to me it's a little bit, a little bit too much, you know. So I hesitated to click any links in Amazon because they remember, okay, so what kind of video you would like to watch, okay. So from Microsoft Corporation, they also address down the worldwide audience, because like saying that we cannot really control the visitors. And they call, also the Industry Canada will say, okay, you need to translate, but not simply translate to adapt to the content styles. I do not very much agree with the first one, like translating. Do we really need to translate? That's another thing. So, but the research consulting company, they found like visitors will spend 2 times longer than those English-only sites, and business users have 3 times more likely to buy. I don't know what to buy, why they are buying, just because of the language. So, but anyway, the localization doesn't equals with like a translation, but localization about to fit the local audience. Just go through all the headlines and these things. So that's why, that's the reason. It's not like their foreign language sites are more interesting or something, but they think, okay, it's easy now, so let me stay longer. Yeah. So that's their finding. And the researching clinician, well, did this 4 years ago, so I don't know what's going on. And this is a very good comment about global uniformity. It's like, okay, let's do localization, then let's translate this and let's change that. But finally, people think, okay, are you one company or are you the same organization? So try to keep, the identity, also the so-called online identity, the same. Show you here, for example, this is roots. This is something like they are trying to keep their global uniformity, but at the same time they are doing some localization tries. So the top 2 is French and English. Then we have USA on your left hand, and then Taiwan right side. So many things are recognizable, uniform. So you can see the logo, and you can see the and also the basic design. Like
it's really interesting the way in the Taiwanese site they're playing up the Canadian Maple Leaf.
Yes.
The U.S. site, the bald baseball cap is USA. There's no sign of Maple Leafs anywhere. They're finding that even the Canadian branding works in Taiwan.
Yeah, usually across Pacifics, then they sell the country of origin image. Yeah, because neighbors know too much well about each other. So yeah, I know you, so don't need to. Yeah, But then the globalization, for example, this is another side of this Li Ning sportswear brand, and this is so nearly identical as Nike. Yeah, yeah. Also their logo, all these things, and the way to present it. So because also quite many, especially Asian companies, they want to become a global player, and they thought this is the way, and so they are modeling after many US leading companies. And this is IP tracking, if I can play that for you. So this is Absolute Vodka, so anybody younger than 18-year-old, okay. But this is a great flash also. You can see the water flowing down. Drops, and I don't know, yeah, okay. They know what's the time here, and oh, they thought we are at home. So that's a wrong guess. Yeah, they should know this IP address is not from home, right?
So they think you're at home?
Yeah, they thought we are at home. So is this like wireless connection, like using a? Yeah, Simon Fraser. They should guess like absolutely you are Simon Fraser.
Everybody works at home.
I tried sometimes, like 4:30, you getting and they say absolutely, going home or something. Yeah, they guess. Yeah, and yeah, and 1 a.m. you can try. They will suggest you go to the bar, not go to bed. Okay, and yeah, and this is also very sophisticated website.
So if you're under 19, then you can't access the site? Is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is another hook. There's nothing, but they say okay because this is are you at the legal drinking age? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and because Absolute, their champagne is so big, like they have Absolute this, Absolute that. Have you seen the Absolute Paris? Then they have the bottles as the jewelry store, and then Absolute Blue Clean. Then they have 2 bottles for the bridge, and then Absolute Geneva. They have a bottle in a watch. Yeah, so so that's an example like using IP tracking. Okay, so anyway, one thing I will conclude here is that this can be a useful model for us to continue to study on this website communication patterns and think about, okay, what are the interpersonal communication patterns? Are they doing the same thing for the non-interpersonal communication? And what are the values supporting behind of that? Second is that intra-page and web communication shall be viewed as online customer relationship management, which is not very much often addressed. And actually this related to when we look at the e-business, Industrial Canada says like e-business involves a shift from management-centric business process focus to a customer-centric relationship focus. And I thought this is quite right because of the nature of the internet. It's like you cannot control it. And they are all in the hand of your customers or potential customers. They have the mouse, and they can click, and they can stay, they can leave. They can switch to your competitors or something. So what you need to really do is to make a very clever decision on this web page-based communication for the organization. And there's another study, I didn't put it here, there's another study on how high level, this e-decision is made. E-decision, which means everything related to the internet. Do you have your CEO sit in the e-decision board meeting, or do you have your CIO doing that, or is that you only hire a computer man and say, okay, make a page, that's it. So, and the next thing I will go into do is to focusing on a specific industry sector, and later move to the second one and see what's the differences. And also technical sophistications is another concern. Is that necessary, to make it more like so-called advanced, and do some bigger scale research. But what's the last one is, try to search and surf online till the last page. And I'm going to show you the last page of internet. Have you seen that? The last page of internet is this one. And you can Google it, and it's there. And it says, you have reached the very last page of the internet. We hope you have enjoyed your browsing. Now turn off your computer and go outside and play. And I also would like to suggest you go outside and play. Well, this is my presentation, and any comments or questions? Yes?
Yeah, okay, just when I was listening to your comparison between the Western and the Eastern kind of way of presenting the web page, it just occurred to me that whether that reflects the way Western Easterners think, that when I think of it, it's like writing. Many students in China, when they come here, they complain that they can't write because professors won't accept what they write. They write around things until finally they reach the point. Well, the Western student, they write right to the point. This is what I want to say. This is how to support it. But will that be part of this? As we say, like for a Chinese website, probably they think it's kind of rude to go to the point, right at the first page. So you go around a little bit, and then here's what I want to say. But people here, they say, okay, this is what I want, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Whether that has something to do with like web page design, just
exactly. Yeah, that's also, yeah, you're right. I agree with you. Because I won't say like in the next 50 years all the web pages will be the same, because people still have the different thinking patterns and values, and presentation skills and styles. And the same thing like when we have training sessions for interpersonal communication, right? Skills is like answer the question, tell me about yourself. And the Chinese will tell you about his grandfather and father and family story, okay? So where did you work? Then they will tell you, I worked in Microsoft China, and Microsoft China is a really big one. There are many projects, but not about their own involvement in it. So it's more like, as Professor Shen put it, like the Chinese way is would like to start from the background and developing the interpersonal relationship and the trust till the micro one. But then the Western way is like let's focus on one thing, and we have time to, and you also have the access to many backgrounds. Yeah, you're right. I mean, also, if this trend continues, to have two different styles, let's say East and West, if this trend continues, then the next generation, or these young kids, I will say, will still do and think in different ways. And this is something in debate, like in 1980s, there's already one article in Harvard Business Review on proclaiming the age of globalization already arrived. So we only need one McDonald's, one Coca-Cola, one thing. But then localization people, focus, let's say, more about because people do the same thing. They buy a can of Coca-Cola for different reasons. So they consume also different images. So that's good. Yeah. Yes.
I know your topic is just across Pacific, but I'm wondering how about the European websites? Because now you have the comparison between the East and West, but it's more like American versus Asian, right? So I'm kind of curious about how that, because the Europeans, they have a different ways of philosophizing about communication, about aesthetics.
Yeah, you are very right. Actually, I stayed for 8 years in Finland, so I used the European websites actually more than Canadian sites. Yeah, but this is a presentation in this forum, so I focus on the two sides of the Pacific. But it will be very good to compare the two sides of Atlantic and see what's the difference. In general, the European ways, continental Europeans, I mean, they are also relatively, high context, which is like expect you to read between lines, but not as much as the Asians. They are in the middle, I would say. That's one thing from my observation. I haven't done any systematic research on that, but Absolut is from Sweden, and so you can see that's one example, the European one, and the Zhejiang University site is very the English one is nearly identical as the one of the Jyvaskyla University where I studied. It's like nearly a copy. You copy the platform and then you import different words. Yeah, so that would be very interesting. Another thing missing here is Hong Kong, which will itself will be very interesting because Hong Kongese have, and also English is still the official language for next 40 what? 43 years or something. Okay, yeah, 43 years I think. Yeah, they keep 50 years not change anything. But but then the Hong Kong ones will be very interesting to see because they are in the middle of East and West and people meet each other and they have a variety of audience, English speaking and Chinese speaking. That would be very interesting. What I limited my focus, as I said, I look at websites designed in Canada, Japan, Korea, and China. China here not including Hong Kong and for this reason, yeah. And Singapore is another one. They have 4 official languages. That would be very interesting. But which way they are going to present?
Well, the popularity of Flash, I was wondering whether it's due to the fact that because in both Korea and China, they're more broadband than in the U.S. and in Canada. Whether that could account for it?
They are more
broadband, the high speed.
Okay, the broadband.
Yeah, because I mean, if you were doing the dialogue, it would take ages before you can download one of these flashes.
Yeah.
And I know that it's less popular. I mean, for instance, when I go to China, I mean, I find that everywhere you can get broadband access.
Yeah, and so many young people becomes like the fan of Flash. They make those flashes, not for commercial use. They just feel so interesting, right? Yeah, I agree with you. Like the development of, say, even internet or computer science is even more dramatically in Asia. Like Asians embraced that. I wonder that's there are other, not only cultural reasons, say economic reasons and political reasons. Say people feel it's so good that they can start to make their own webpage. It's like you make your little small newspaper, which is forbidden completely in China. But now it's so good, you make it and people can read it. But that's not in the scope of this study because I banned BBS, all these blogs. But you're very right, and people are so enthusiastic on these new tools, usually in Asians, US and Canada is slower there.
I find that, for instance, for a lot of hotels, like even the 4 or 5-star hotels in the US, they don't have, high-speed internet in all the rooms.
Yeah, it's the similar thing. Similar thing is like the Chinese visitors asking me why you, like in Vancouver or in the North America, why you still have so many, public telephones. It's disappearing in China. Like everyone will have a cell phone, but here, let's say traditional technology still existing here, but over there, people just already throw them to the museum and try to use the most modern one. I was thinking about, because for the baby boomers, public phone is a kind of their lifestyle. And they are not disappearing, so so do the public phones. So that's one thing, like the lifestyle. But in China or Japan or Korea, look at the young generation, they don't want to look back very much or see or inherit old habits, but they want to see what's new.
As a follow-on to that, first of all, I really like the overlay of intercultural communication theory in terms of an explanation, and your notion of assessing expectations, I think, is extremely important to recognize that it's not just adaptation to the other culture that's important. It's that understanding what the expectation is on the other end. But as I was thinking about it, sort of a follow-on to Rosalie's idea is that when we see some of these things changing in terms of websites and the way the internet is used, I think we, particularly as academics, we assume that there's a purpose, right? We think there must be a reason for this. When in many cases it may simply be technology moving quite fast and serendipity. People, some kid gets an opportunity to say, I can do that. And doesn't that look cool, right? And then from an isomorphism standpoint, somebody else says, that looks pretty good there. That must be working for them. I'll do that. And it develops without a clear strain of causation or purpose underlying it. It's just the technology that's moving so rapidly that people are kind of hanging on to it. I know that's somewhat inconsistent with trying to drive this theory of interpersonal communication or intercultural interaction underneath it, but it seems to me that some of that may be going on.
Yeah. I think that's right. Yeah, not everything is because of culture. Not everything is because of culture. Yeah, and that even can be these examples even can be very exceptional individual, and just because the KT they hired one guy like to play that, and KT doesn't care about that, and then today we use that and say this is a Korean style, but maybe I talked with some of my Korean colleagues, but maybe that's our misconception about that. But what I felt like a study on webpage communication is very interesting is because first collecting data is quite easy. I can do that from one computer, from one place, and I can Google top 10 Korean companies, top 10 Canadian companies, and compare. So which is like I don't need to bother to call them and ask them to send me their marketing materials or PR materials. That's one thing. Second is, these are selected examples. Some of them they are quite extreme. extraordinary, just to amuse you. But these, I selected them because I see something repetitively happening. And then once I saw these parts, I think there must be something happening there. Yeah, it's not, if it's not an individual choice, if it's not developed by one company, you know, then there must be something. And another thing is, like, you think about Flash, you think about those technology, they are available all around the world. So that's very interesting, because many of our interpersonal communication skills, interpersonal communication patterns are developed when we are not connected. So I'm from agricultural culture. So we host our guests like this. And you're from industrial culture. You host your guests like this, because we are not connected. But this time, everything's available for everyone. So it's like you give a sheet to everyone and different color pens to everyone, but then you get different pictures. And then that's interesting. Like, everyone got equal chance to create like Flash. Everyone can download that and use it. But why this guy like to use that more than the others? There must be a reason. And also here, like as I said, make a link it's very easy in the internet. But why this company makes link like this, and to the outsiders, why the other don't do that? Then there must be a decision, not only from the computer man, because the computer man say, tell me which part I shall do. But then the PR person will say, we need to link to Ministry of Commerce because we have a close relation with them, so something. Or we show them how well connected we are with other companies. Then this makes us look stronger. So then I think, yeah, this is something I like to explore further, because when you compare advertisements, newspaper advertisements or TV advertisements, people will claim, say, I don't have that. I don't have that money. I don't have that technology. So in our country we do this, and that's it. But online I say, you have it. Why don't you not use that? Something.
Not. I'd like to thank Dr. Li for a fascinating presentation on a wonderful topic, that's very involved.
Okay, thank you.
I know that Dr. Li will be around for a little bit, so that if you have any questions for him, I'm sure he'll be happy to answer those questions. Actually, I have 2 questions for you, so I'll ask you those questions afterwards.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for your interest, time, and yeah. If you find some interesting web pages, please let me know.